Last video I demonstrated a table being queried or updated from one node of the RAC cluster and then being queried from the other node, and the query taking a bit longer on the other node of the cluster. And I mentioned that this is because Oracle presents a single global unified cache called a global cache with a technology called RAC fusion, and if blocks are present in the buffer cache of one node, they may have to be transferred to the other node over the interconnect. So the other node has some latency waiting for those blocks. So let me just do a short demo. This session is connected to node 1. Okay. So the node 1 was started up 3:14 p.m. and currently it's 3:23 p.m. This session is connected to node 2. Okay, and it's at 3:24 p.m. That's fine. So I'm first going to run this query to look at the size of the table. So it's 150,000 rows in 3,000 blocks. I'm going to run this query to get my session ID 45. Okay, so let me just run this. This is already set for 45. The session ID is already set for 45 because I've run it once. So this is the current information about session 45 here. I'm looking at only the GC weights, global cache weights. So first I run this query from node 2. I'm doing a full table scan on node 2. Okay, 0.18 seconds. Then I do the same full table scan on node 1. Okay, 1.038 seconds, a bit longer. Let me look at the statistics here. Oops, sorry, I have to reset this. SID is equal to 45. So it's 45. Okay, so you can see the difference between earlier CPUs 3030 microseconds and GC CR, that is consistent read grants and blocks, 2.2 microseconds, 69 microseconds. Now it's 2.2, and we now see something here. This is something new. This was not visible earlier. GCCR multi-block mixed. So if I bring up the description of that, GCCR multi-block mixed. The client requested multiple consistent read buffers from another instance in the cluster, and the remote instance returned a mixture of blocks and grants. So that's what we have here. Sorry, GCCR multi-block mixed. So this is the wait event. You can see it in the administrator's reference. Let me just bring up the session here. So this is quite some time. Now I'm going to make it worse. I'm going to do an update on this table. So currently both caches have the same consistent read copy of the table buffers before I did the update. Now once I've done the update in node 2, this is node 2, the blocks are dirty. Okay, so now if node 1 were to try to read, remember node 1 will not read the updates because it is not committed, but node 1 will still can still request a full table scan. Remember these were our wait events. GCCR multi-block mixed 559 microseconds, 18 such waits, and GCCR grant to wait 139 waits. So let's go back here and run this query on node 1. You can see it's taking longer than before. Before it was 1.0 something seconds, now it's taking much longer because now it's finding that all the blocks it wants to read from node 2 again because those blocks were marked dirty. There's a global resource directory which is maintained by RAC. So the global resource directory says those blocks are marked dirty. Whatever blocks you had in your buffer cache in node 1 have to be fetched again from node 2 because they have been updated by node 2. So node 1 is now fetching all those blocks again from node 2, and this time because they're all the dirty, it has to also spend time checking whether the updates are committed or not. So now you can see it took 39 seconds. Previously just took 1.0 something seconds. And if I look at, this was the last round of statistics, 559 microseconds on GCR multi-block mixed. if I run this query now, 39,440 microseconds. That's the big difference between in these two wait events. The others are not significantly increased, but this GCR CR multi-block mixed, like I showed you in the documentation, this is what is a wait event when node 1 requested those blocks from node 2 again. It had already requested them once before, but now it finds that they've been updated by node 2. They've been marked dirty, so it has to request the updated blocks from node 2, and you can see now that it has spent considerable time in the wait event from 559 cumulative wait time to 39,440 wait time. So this is where it spent the most of that 39.44 seconds here. If I were to do update again, let me just run a sec. I'll just do another update, maybe so I'm again dirtying the blocks. The blocks are in the buffer cache on node 2, so the update goes through very quickly. I don't need to look at the statistics, it's just 0.168 seconds on node 2. But remember, you can see here the last was 39,440 on node 1. Let me try to run my query again on node 1, and the last query was 39.44 seconds, and now it's again going to take time, because now, although it had actually fetched those buffers, it says oops, those buffers are all dirty again, I'm going to fetch them again from node 2. So this is the issue with RAC. If you have the same blocks being repeatedly modified and queried across multiple nodes, those nodes I mean those user sessions will spend time waiting for those blocks to be transferred between nodes. The transfer is across the interconnect, so it's supposed to be a very fast high speed network for the interconnect, but those buffers are not local to the cache. They are being read from the node 2 cache into the node 1 cache. So here we see 36.491 seconds again. So the last cumulative wait time, let me run this again and see what's the cumulative wait time. 75,000, so it's now 75.982 seconds, which matches what we saw here, another 36 seconds. So now it's total wait time out of that 36 plus the previous 34, almost all the time has been on GC multi-block remixed. If I were to run this query again without a fresh set of updates, last query was 36 seconds. I run this query again. Now there's another factor that comes into play. The blocks have been modified but not committed. Okay. When node 2 transferred those blocks to node 1, it would have flushed the redo for those blocks to the redo log files. But those blocks are not yet committed, so we are also suffering the impact of delayed block cleanout, which now node 1 may also have to do another round of delayed block cleanout. So node 1 is again going to spend time reading those blocks. Remember, here I did not make any changes on node 2. I had done an update twice only. After the second update on node 2, the second query on node 1 was also slow, and the third query is again still slow, 35 seconds. So here was the last cumulative time. Let me just run this query again. It's still increasing, so it's still quite high. So it's still fetching some blocks from node 2 to node 1, because still has to verify. Now if I were to run this query one third time, okay, remember of the total time, very little time is on CPU. Most of the time is on reads from node 2 to node 1. Let me run this a third time. So again, it's still suffering an impact. Okay, because we still don't have those blocks committed by the session on node 1. So the global resource directory keeps saying those blocks have been marked dirty on node 2. The blocks have been marked dirty on node 2. So node 1 cannot rely on that. It still has to verify those blocks. So as long as the node 2 session has not committed, node 1 query will keep spending time. You can see 30 seconds here. Let's see, it was 111 seconds. So let's query again, see how much it has gone up. Now it's gone up to 141 seconds. So it's always consistently around the same time. So as long as this guy is not commit, it is made his commit, and flushed uh, the commit. Now if I were to commit, there will still be one more round where I'm going to suffer overhead. Remember, the last overhead is 141, I mean seconds on GCC CR multi-block read counts mixed. One more time I run this query. Again it finds that these blocks are dirty, but now it's going to find those are committed as well. Okay, those blocks are dirty. Those blocks are owned by node 2 because they're dirty, but they have been committed. So now node 1 will say, okay, now they are committed, so I'm still going to spend time verifying and doing a delayed block cleanout if necessary. So again I'm going to spend 30 seconds or so in my user query. So this is the user on node 1 who is being impacted by the user on node 2 who has updated the same blocks. Just wait for this to complete. So again 36 seconds. What is the last cumulative time? 1412. Okay, let's run this here. Let's see what's the updated time. 176. So again a lot of time is spent on this wait event. What if I want to run this query here again one more time? There's one more time when it's going to do one more round of delayed block cleanouts and verification and block transfers. It's only on the third read after the commit that I will see an improvement in node 1. So here it's 28 seconds. The last one was 176. I run this query again. 205. So it's still taking a lot of time. One last time. Let me just run this query one last time. Three seconds. Now the big improvement from 28, 30, 32 seconds now down to 3 seconds. This was 205. Let's see what it is now. Has it increased significantly? No, 209. So now it's that the additional 3 seconds is this. A few more blocks were still being fetched from node 2 to node 1. If I run this query one more time, 0.01 second. If I run the query on node 2, these blocks are already local to node 2. They were already modified. So node 2 does not need to read them back from node 1. Just remember, node 2 had read those blocks in buffer cache. Node 2 had updated those blocks in buffer cache. So they are good on node 2. They don't need to be fetched from node 1 because node 1 did not make any changes. But every time node 1 read them, node 1 had to verify that the blocks have been changed on node 2 and spend time fetching the blocks again and again, doing a delayed block cleanout as well. Only after the third round is this query consistently fast. Now I'm just demonstrating this with one table alone, 0.011 second. 0.011 second. Now it's down, it's okay, now it's good. But if you're running RAC and if you have hot tables or hot blocks which are repeatedly being updated by 2 or more nodes in the cluster, you will suffer this global cache waits. In my demonstration, I just had one node doing the update and the other node repeatedly waiting for the repeatedly spending time as a consequence of the updates by node 2. But if node 1 had also gone and done an update, then after that the next read by node 2 would start suffering the same GC block waits, because then node 2 would say, oh, those blocks are modified by node 1, I need to verify them again, I need to fetch them across from node 1 to node 2. So when you are running cache and a rack and your application vendor tells you, oh, everything is transparent, you don't need to worry, you do need to worry about hot tables, hot blocks, if they are being repeatedly being updated from different nodes. If I had this table always being updated from this node only and always being queried from this node only, I have no problems at all. It's working perfectly as if it would work in a single instance environment. But if I have these blocks being updated repeatedly from here and being queried repeatedly from here, this user here will be suffering these waits. So it's something you have to be very careful about, and something you need to monitor. There are a lot of different types of GC weights, global cache weights. So if you look at the administrator's reference, you can see there's a lot of different global cache weights you need to be familiar with. CR is consistent read, current is current block get, meaning is if GC current would mean when it wants to fetch the block to actually update it also. In this demonstration, node 1 wanted to fetch the block just to read the block, but if node 1 wanted to even update the block, it would have been a current wait also, because the block is being updated from both sides. So just remember, this is how RAC behaves. This is impact. It's not here in this case CPU is not an issue. It's a GC waits that over time, each time the user was querying the table, he was waiting on this wait event.